Bethesda's first new IP in over 25 years. 8 years in development, 1,000 planets to explore. The vast universe of Starfield promised to be Bethesda's new crowning jewel that would stand toe-to-toe with their other open-world masterpieces, The Elder Scrolls and Fallout. Starfield had all of the makings to be the best open-world space sci-fi RPG that the world had ever seen, and had gamers' expectations through the roof. When asked what Starfield's success looks like, Bethesda director Todd Howard said this.
People say they love the game. What do they think of it the first week it comes out? What do they think after a year? I hope that, it sort of stands the test of time.
So what happened to Starfield? And where is it 1 year later? It has been 1 year since the release of Starfield. Taking a look at Starfield's release compared to Bethesda's other gigantic titles was actually quite unique. To back up just a bit here, Starfield was originally announced in 2018 and scheduled to release in November of 2022. However, it received a few delays until its official launch on September 6th, 2023. With that being said though, fans who ordered either the Premium Edition or Constellation Edition received 5 days of early access to the game. Another aspect that made Starfield's launch so unique is that it would be one of Bethesda's first major releases that would exclude PlayStation users on launch. Due to Microsoft's acquisition of Bethesda in 2021, the stage was set to make Starfield an exclusive for only Xbox and PC users. Additionally, Starfield was brought directly to Xbox Game Pass, which also makes it unique in terms of Bethesda's other juggernaut franchises, Fallout and The Elder Scrolls. This meant that Xbox and PC players would be able to play this game right away on release for only $20 a month. To top it all off, reviews were coming in from most game critics that were praising the game for its immersive world, top-tier graphics, and its lack of bugs. The stage was set for Starfield to become a massive hit, and the hype train was in full motion. Many might ask, was the excitement too big for the game to actually succeed? Speaking from personal experience, thinking back, I felt ecstatic for this game's release, and even experienced a childlike glee when booting up the game that I hadn't felt since Fallout 4's launch day back in 2015. The first 20 plus hours of the game felt amazing, customizing your ship, exploring a variety of planets, and diving headfirst into a journey through the cosmos. But then it started feeling not so unique. The endless amount of procedurally generated planets that were supposed to make up this galactic odyssey now just felt like work, and most of the planets didn't really contain anything of real value. And I wasn't alone in this feeling. Much of the general community felt the same, and many were even frustrated by the incredible amount of bugs in a game that was praised by critics to be a solid and stable experience. With that being said, the modding community would actually go on to be an early saving grace for Starfield, with its unofficial patch support. This was pretty impressive due to the fact that Starfield released without any tools to support the modding community. Even with all the issues that fans experienced, Starfield still had a pretty impressive launch week. Starfield will go on to have over 6 million players in the first week, making it Bethesda's biggest game launch of all time. On Starfield's official launch day on September 6, 2023, CEO of Microsoft Phil Spencer announced that Starfield was Xbox's most played next-gen game ever, and hit a concurrent player count of 1 million players. On September 10th, Starfield will reach its all-time concurrent peak on Steam with 330,000 concurrent players. However, only 1 month later, in October 2023, player count numbers dropped by over 60%, and would continue to drop until May of 2024. So while Starfield's initial launch might have been spectacular, the game itself left players feeling a little disappointed. But that isn't all that uncommon in the modern day gaming era. Take into account Cyberpunk 2077 or even Starfield's competition, No Man's Sky. Both of these games had incredible hype before launch, only to disappoint fans upon release. But both games somehow turned it around and found later success despite their initial setbacks. So does Starfield have the potential to do the same? What has Bethesda done to turn the game around, and will it ever live up to its initial out-of-this-world expectations? Needless to say, Starfield's launch was not what fans expected, and while various updates and patches were implemented after launch to help with some of the glaring bugs that players experienced, it would not be until May of 2024 that Starfield started truly giving players a reason to come back by dropping its largest update since launch. Starfield's May update brought many new features and quality of life components to Starfield that made players feel like they were finally being heard, such as more detailed maps, a full range of gameplay options, new ship interior customization, and more. According to Steam charts, this would be the first time that Starfield was seeing an uptick in its average player count, with an increase of around 30% from the previous month. Bethesda would even continue this trend in June with what could be argued an even larger update than the previous month. Along with more bug fixes, Starfield's June update would add a ton of new content that would expand upon the bounty hunter system in the game. But perhaps the biggest addition in this update would be that it would finally bring official mod support to Starfield and offer the Creation Kit. One of the most heavily requested features since Starfield's launch was finally here. The Creation Kit is the official modding tool for Starfield, and this would open the door for the community to finally begin building the mega mod library for Starfield, similar to its predecessors, The Elder Scrolls and Fallout. But if the announcement of free content and mods wasn't enough to pique players' interests, alongside the huge new additions, Bethesda also released the first official trailer of Starfield's first DLC, Shattered Space, with a date of 2024. Once again, the hype train for Starfield was in full motion, and while it was still nowhere close to its launch number, the June announcement would mark its second consecutive month of increased average players, increasing by an additional 17% from its uptick in May. While the month of July held no new updates or patches, Starfield's August update would mark another exciting addition with the release of the heavily requested land vehicle, the Rev 8. With Starfield's long string of exciting updates, it was actually looking like this could be another case of a game where post-launch content was giving it a second life. But will these updates be enough to keep players around for the long run? And will Starfield ever get close to its player count at launch? So what is Starfield like after all of these content updates and bug fixes? Like many others, it had been around 10 months since I had last played Starfield, and after hearing about all of these major updates and content additions, I decided to pick it back up once again and see what Starfield was truly like after 1 year. One of the biggest changes that I could see was in the technicals of the game. I could tell right away that it was much smoother and much more stable than when I had last journeyed into Starfield. Another major positive change was in the quality of life aspects that Bethesda had added to the game. The more detailed map designs made it much easier to navigate planets, cities, and some large interior areas. Additionally, the ship interior decorating was quickly becoming one of my favorite new additions, and made me wonder how this wasn't in Starfield at launch. A mobile home that you could take planet to planet, allowing you to customize weapons, store items, and just generally decorate almost like any other outpost. With the new ship customization out of the way, I decided to fire up the new Rev 8 land vehicle as well, and take that for a spin. However, this edition I felt a little bit more mixed on. Right off the bat, it cost 25,000 credits, which would make new players have to grind out to receive in the early game. Additionally, the controls felt a little bit like I was driving a racer straight out of Borderlands, and it was pretty clear right away that this was something that was never intended to be added to the game. Needless to say, I was dying to see what this thing was capable of. On a planet with little to no foliage or obstacles, I'm sure it would be easy enough to get from point A to point B. However, I decided to take this to a forest planet and instantly regretted that decision. I got stuck on almost every single obstacle and was almost thinking that it would be quicker to walk to each and every destination. With that being said, there were a few saving graces for the Rev 8 that I found. The boosters made scaling obstacles so much fun, and I could see the vehicle being a blast on a planet with less dense foliage. Additionally, the ability to use the mounted gun and scanner from the vehicle made it pretty easy to do almost all of the tedious planet exploration from inside the vehicle itself. Lastly, it is a lifesaver during the times where you are over encumbered, and will most definitely save you from having to stop every minute to wait for your O2 to fill back up. Saving what I thought would be the best feature for last, I decided to dive deeper into Starfield's revamped modding scene. I tried to keep to the mods that would maintain the game's lore, which essentially means foregoing the vast amount of Star Wars conversion mods that were available. I also stayed within the confines of the game itself, which also meant only trying out the mods available through the creation menu instead of venturing to sites like Nexus Mods. I wanted to see how user-friendly the game would be for those just looking to spice up the vanilla game. So I went to the creations menu with my free 1,000 credits that I received from my purchase of the premium edition, and ended up actually a bit disappointed. There were definitely a ton of mods to choose from. However, many of the items in the creation club cost credits, which meant I would need to be selective with what I spent them on. Most of the mods that I did end up opting into were Bethesda made mods, which were a few weapon skins and a new outfit. I also decided to download a couple of unverified free creator mods to see how well they functioned, and for the most part, they didn't. All in all, the Creation Club felt more like an attempt at a cash grab than a way for Bethesda to work with creators to help make Starfield's world feel more alive. For my final thoughts on the game's current state, it felt like there were a few steps in the right direction, but all in all, the game still felt more or less the same. Journeying to different planets still felt almost uselessly lost in the game's narrative. While there are more than 1,000 planets to explore, I just felt like, what is the point? Things like the Revate and the ability to decorate your ship would definitely make planet exploration more convenient now, but realistically, the overall feel of the game still just felt as empty as it did 1 year ago. However, there is still some hope for Starfield's future. Looking at the cadence of updates that have been rolled out from Starfield starting in May of 2024, we've already seen an upward trend of players returning to the game, which is amazing news for Starfield, but the biggest question is if they can keep up the work and are enough players coming back. With the major rollouts of some of the most heavily requested features being mods and the land vehicle, it was enough to recover a small portion of the player base, but during an interview with Mr. Matty Plays, Todd Howard said that there will be bigger gaps, while referring to new content rollouts. Looking at the 1 month where there wasn't a content rollout on the Starfield end, could indicate a bad sign of things to come for Starfield. With a summer full of big Starfield news, the month of July held no news or updates, and this could be the reason that we saw the game lose around 19% of its average player base. However, we're looking at the future of Starfield, and what is to come. And with that being said, we should talk about the Shattered Space DLC. With the addition of the upcoming Shattered Space DLC coming on September 30th, we may see the biggest increase to player count since the game's release. Shattered Space promises to bring new story content, planets, missions, and even new enemies. Thematically speaking, Shattered Space even looks to add a new eerie layer to the Starfield universe, with more dark and gritty undertones that weren't really present in the base game. While discussing Starfield's future, we should also mention modding. Modding is something that has extended the life of almost every major Bethesda game release, and the thought is that Starfield would be no exception. But Starfield's modding community is another aspect of the future that is yet unknown. Overall, it is just difficult to say whether Shattered Space or the modding scene will be true turning points for Bethesda's space RPG, and only time will tell if Starfield will stand the test of time. What do you think about Starfield 1 year later, and what would you like to see for the future of Starfield? Let us know, and thank you for watching Game Rant. Don't forget to game on, and we'll see you next time.